We're back with Michael Schneider of Hivebrain, a famous iPhone app developer here in Seattle. Yes, or infamous.
He's famous in this room for sure.
Well, he has probably some of the most successful iPhone apps, I would say, and as far as a Seattle developer goes.
Yeah.
So we're gonna chat here a little bit about just what you're seeing with some of the new technologies that are coming out from Apple, from the iPad to the iPhone 4, and just wanted to start with your impressions of the iPhone 4. Obviously, there's a lot of chatter in the tech community about some of the antenna problems. Is this a phone? I know you have one, but is this a phone that other people should rush out and get?
Yes, I mean, I'm a little bit biased because I love the Apple stuff, but I've got the iPhone 4, and I also have my old 3GS, and it's not like I'm setting down the iPhone 4 to pick back up the 3GS. The iPhone 4 is an amazing device.
Have you had any of the antenna problems that a lot of people have?
Hard to say.
Discuss?
I haven't noticed changes based on how I hold it. The phone has more dropped calls than I think a lot of other phones. So, I mean, that's a real issue. I have a lot of dropped calls, but the rest of the phone sort of outweighs it,
Yeah.
I think.
I think the big question in the industry is whether the media have been too harsh on Apple or Apple has been in denial about the realities of the problem. Do you have a sense for which of those might be the case?
It's probably a little of both. I think that the media is really pretty tough on Apple. They're just such a juggernaut, and they're everybody's favorite phone, and it's just easy to want to. If there's a chink in the armor that you can attack, everybody just piles on it because it makes for a pretty interesting story. But realistically, I mean, the phone still works great, and nobody's taking them back. That's kind of the big thing I notice.
From a development standpoint, what can you do with the iPhone 4 that you couldn't do with the 3G or the 3GS that you're excited about?
Right. So the iPhone 4 has what I think is most interesting from a developer's perspective is it has a gyroscope in it. So instead of the original iPhones have had accelerometers, so they can detect movement, but the gyroscope can actually detect position, which opens the doors for some really interesting things.
So are you doing anything with that, with some of the apps that you're building?
Yeah, nothing specific that I've that's far enough along that it's really developed into a product, but I have been playing with it. There's just some, I like to play around with the phone in my spare time, and one of the things I've been working on is sort of...
When you're on the beach with your wife.
Yeah, when I'm on the beach with my, at people's weddings and the births of kids.
You're that
and things.
guy.
I'm that guy still on the phone. But I've been thinking a lot about trying to use the phone as a bit of a heads-up display, like a head-mounted display. So you take the iPhone 4 has a really high-resolution screen. I mean, 4 times higher than the previous one. So the dots are so small that you just can't perceive them with your eye. So if you take that phone and you put it in front of your eyes with like a magnifying glass, at a certain distance, it sort of starts to fill your range. And then you combine that with the gyroscope and the head tracking and use 3D animation. And now when you move your head, you're seeing different things. So it becomes almost like a virtual reality device. That's the thing that I've been goofing around with lately. I don't know what kind of product that could create, but it is all the technology that's needed to make that happen is in the phone right now.
Sounds trippy.
Yeah, are you saying you would actually embed it in like a motorcycle helmet or something like that? That's what I'm envisioning you.
Yeah. I was thinking more like goggles in front of my eyes.
Oh, I see.
But a motorcycle helmet would actually be much easier, and you could put like the speakers. The problem with an idea like that is it's not a real commercially viable model if everybody has to run out and buy a set of glasses to use it.
Right.
But it's a lot of fun to play with, and maybe somebody will put out something like that.
Yeah.
What are some of the favorite apps that you're not developing that you've come across, either for the iPhone or the iPad?
Yeah, in terms of functionality, there's the Skype app for the iPad and the iPhone is pretty impressive in terms of the capabilities it adds to the phone. Skype lets you make phone calls to people internationally for free, and the nice thing about the latest version of Skype is it can now run in the background, so you're logged into Skype even if you're not in the application. So you can arguably have an iPod Touch and still receive phone calls without having a plan.
So
pretty cool.
So even if Skype isn't launched, if somebody calls you,
it'll still ring.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's like a phone.
It's just like a phone.
Imagine that.
And maybe Skype won't drop calls.
Are people using that to bypass?
I don't think so. The background applications on Skype's only been out for a few days.
Okay.
So it's just now starting to maybe be possible to use it for something like that.
It's a good point. Has Apple talked about upgrading the iPod Touch to something comparable to the iPhone 4's form and design?
We haven't heard anything, but Apple doesn't say really anything about anything until they've
Right. Oh yeah, trust me.
they're so tight-lipped. But it wouldn't surprise me. Obviously, there'd be economies of scale if you try to move things toward a similar form factor.
I mean, that raises a good point. I mean, what is it like developing for, and your livelihood's really tied into Apple, developing for kind of a closed system to some degree, and a system where they've yanked a lot of apps at points too. So I mean, what does that create anxiety for you, or?
I think it's a little overblown. It does create a bit of anxiety. I mean, my livelihood is tied to Apple's decisions. If they decided tomorrow that they were going to, pull all apps that did a certain thing, and my app was in that category, that would be a really bad thing. So that's a little scary. But at the same time, the platform is so amazing, and it's created an unprecedented opportunity for people to, like individuals, to make something and put it out to the entire world. And so when you weigh it all together, it's not even an issue.
Yeah, but at the same time, is the platform that amazing? I mean, you look at what Android has done just in the roughly year and a half that it's been on the market, and you can do something with a Sprint Evo, HTC Evo that the iPhone doesn't do. Like, for example, just off the top of my head, you can use it as a Wi-Fi hotspot.
Yeah, that is pretty impressive. Now, I'm a big Apple fan, so Apple now does have tethering, but they charge for it, and so there are a lot of things that the Android. I have apps on Android and also have apps coming out soon on BlackBerry, so I'm sort of platform agnostic in that regard. But I guess when I talk about the platform that Apple's created, it's not so much about the technology. It's about the sales channel for people in business to be able to push content down to users that are ready and willing to pay for it. And Apple's got more credit cards on file than I think anybody else. Maybe Amazon might be another competitor in that regard. So most people can hit one button and buy stuff, which is amazing.
Do you have a prediction or a sense for long term which mobile operating system will prevail? Android, iPhone, Windows Phone? I mean, is it even worth putting Windows Phone into that sentence?
RIM, BlackBerry.
Yeah.
I mean, throw that in there.
Yeah, I would say, if I had to guess, I would say it would be, 5 years from now, dominantly iPhone and Android. I mean, Android's a real player. I mean, the apps that I sell on Android sell well, and every month it seems there's a new phone that's impressive and has new features. So there's going to be a big portion of the public that uses Android, and it's not going away because anybody can adopt it. So it's the most available option for most cell phone providers. Windows 7, I've been hearing rumors from people that have used it, people that aren't Microsoft people, like people that are into Apple.
Like real people.
Real people that have used the phone and tell me that it's better than Android. And so I heard that, I think, yesterday. So that's like literally that's the bright spot. And now I'm actually considering Windows 7 as something to think about because, previously not much.
Right.
So for the people who may not be familiar with Windows Phone 7, one of the primary ideas is that it gets away from the idea of apps to a certain extent. They have apps, but they're using this thing called hubs that will pull content from the apps into these central places, like a bunch of different photos from a bunch of different apps into a photo hub. How will that affect the app developer?
Yeah, I think, I don't know a whole lot about how it's going to play out. That actually that resonates with what I heard from someone else. They said it was really cool how all the content was available all over the phone. For app developers, if Microsoft doesn't make the platform really attractive to developers, they just won't build for it, and then the phone won't be as valuable to the users.
Yeah. Well, hey, Mike, this has been great. We really appreciate you joining us.
That's fantastic. Thanks for having me.
All right. You're listening to TechFlash on News Talk 97.3 KIRO FM.